479 for the Northern Solution Water Facilities Agreement. And presenter, which one of you are presenting here?
Mayor, I will be first, followed by Sarah Chilton.
Thank you.
Oh, Christ. Eddie, if I could get the PowerPoint, please. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight, it's a pleasure to bring before you for consideration what we call the Northern Solutions Water Facilities Agreement. And this has we've been working on this for well over a year and a half, working closely with Newland. It's been a cross-functional team with the city to include city manager's office, legal, finance, community development, engineering, public works. So it's involved a lot of people at the city. And certainly want to recognize Sarah Chilton, especially for working with Matt Yingling, who's a counsel for Newland, in getting the final crafting of the agreement done, plus all their work along the way. Also, we have Newland. They're represented here tonight as well. Greg Bielli, president, I think he was still towards the back of the room. And then also Pete Tyke, who's their project manager. So they're here if there are any questions that come up later. I will be taking the first several slides, and then I'll be turning it over to the attorney for specifics as far as the resolution. Any other questions? She'll be stepping you through a few process items as well, and certainly we'll both be here to answer questions. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say the city manager's office was very involved in this throughout the process as well. Okay, really the purpose of it fundamentally is a couple of things. Newland needs additional water resources so they can continue development of the Estrella area. And the city, we really need an additional water transmission line because right now we just have one that feeds all of Estrella. So I wanted to make note just as a kind of higher level, these are the things that really drove this agreement. Now we looked at, there were a couple of options when we looked at water resources for Newland. The first one is what we call the Southern Solution, and that is one that is further south of the development of Estrella right now. And that one is longer term, certainly will be viable, but that's also one that has a lot of solids associated with that groundwater, would require a lot of treatment. A lot of brine would be a byproduct of that, and clearly not the best choice at this time. It would be very intensive in terms of operations expenses just because of the removal of the brine. So we settled on the Northern Solution. Northern Solution, the water source is from Adaman, and Adaman is actually just north of our border, and we actually have 2 wells that are operating there right now. And what you'll see in front of you is we have well 1, and in our agreement, it will provide 1.5 million gallons per day allocated to Newland, and they are paying 100% of the cost for the delivery of that water. Will they be taking it all today? Certainly not. But what this does is I get through the balance of the presentation, you'll see what it does provide for them. Additionally, they have the option of well 2, which is another 500,000 gallons a day. So in total, they'll have 2 million gallons a day. And of that, they're paying the proportionate share of the cost. And in this case, you'll see that it's $2.3 million. So between those, they're paying 100% of the cost of well 1, and then the proportionate share of the 500,000 gallons a day for well 2. The water resources, it provides to them what the equivalent of gallons into equivalent dwelling units. And what that does is when they come in for platting, when they come in for projects, commercial, we actually do, we look at what that requires of us, because when a final plat is approved and actually recorded, we as a city then have an obligation to serve. So it's very important that we look at the capacity for this new resource as far as how it will work with Newland and with the Estrella project. So in here, you'll see that the 1.5 million gallons a day gives them 2,262 equivalent dwelling units. And what that means is, I mean, even before this, they're what I call oversubscribed. So the plats that they have already received approval for now, we actually, long term, we would not be able to provide the water for that. Of course, they're not developing or constructing that many houses in a year right now, but it would be a problem down the road. So we certainly needed to address that. So with the well one capacity, and then with the oversubscribed, it gives them an additional 1384 EDUs that they can then come to the city and ask for plats and other projects. Well 2, the additional 500,000 gallons a day, that we just did a real simple calculation here. It shows you in total the amount of equivalent dwelling units that they'll receive. So when you add up the two, the remaining from well 1 as well as well 2, they'll have over 2,100 equivalent dwelling units that they'll be able to process through our entitlement system. This map, I really wanted to show it just to show you there's going to be a lot of construction going on. This water line, everything you see in red, this is, for reference purposes, everything in red will need to be constructed. That will be a 20-inch water line, and those areas in blue, you'll see those are at 30 inches. That is long-term. A 30-inch transmission line is what would be required. However, that is going to be many, many years from now. But we wanted to get the 30-inch underneath the Cotton Lane Bridge because that's suspended under there, and certainly places where it'd be hard to try and add to later. So good foresight there. Newland funded a couple of different studies. First one was done by Tata and Howard. This was a hydraulic analysis completed last year. And what goes into this, they look at everything from the size of pipes, how the valves, the pumps are working, are they working efficiently, what about growth, what about current requirements. There's a lot that goes into these studies. So Tata and Howard, that was completed March of last year. And from that, that really helped us to then start looking at some of our city requirements as well, to include line sizing, to include some other requirements, which I'll get into in just a moment. So that really led into the second study, Cohen Van Loo. That was just newly minted, January 2012. That was an update based on the negotiations that we had with Newland. And we had our engineering team, Keith Brown especially, very involved with the Newland team and Cohen Van Loo engineers. We went through this. So the system design, here's a couple of things that the city required. First is we needed to bypass Site 13, and I'll show an exhibit of that in just a moment. But we have a 1.5 million gallon tank that is just east of Estrella Parkway and kind of along the San Miguel alignment that's been out there for 26 plus years. So we needed everything that goes in the 16-inch, 1/16-inch water line is all that feeds Estrella today. It all goes through that tank, and that tank has never been taken out of service. So we need a way to bypass that. The other thing that we required was having a separate fill line for Rainbow Valley Tank. That was completed, I believe, in 2008, but that's a 5 million gallon tank, and from that, right now, we fill that tank, and not all of it, but a portion of it in evening hours. So we use a distribution line to actually fill that tank in the off hours so we can keep water storage up in that area. So the purpose of this is to construct that second, another designated fill line from this new water source all the way to the Rainbow Valley tank. And something else, don't want to get into a lot of specifics, but this is an easy one. Maintain separations for zone and 2. I say easy until you get into the design elements. But this is, we have separate pressures. And when you get into parcels 8 and 9, the custom areas of Estrella, you really start to run into some problems where you have to have higher pressure to be able to pump the water uphill. So we have to maintain those separations. So when we did, when Newland funded this additional study from Cohen Van Loo, it took these elements into it. And then finally we said, okay, what is the minimum transmission line that we need to also include for fire flows in the event that there ever is a fire up there? So we agreed upon a 20-inch line. All this took some months to get through, and a lot of working together from both parties. Give a lot of credit to Newland and also to the city. So the considerations, I'm going to boil it down to just a couple. One is Newland has a desire to process a couple of plats that you'll be seeing before the construction gets started. And what we agreed to is they'll have an opportunity to process plats or parcels 5.3 and 5.5 with stipulations. They can take it to the point where they can actually do what I call horizontal infrastructure, pipes, roads, things like that. They just can't go vertical until everything is completed. They also have an ability to submit site plans. Those are done administratively through city staff. It does not come back before council. But there's some stipulations there too. They have an opportunity to develop a building that's over fairly close to the Safeway project, and they'd like to go ahead and start that. And that has stipulations that before that's completed that we need to have assurances that construction is going to be done, et cetera. Remaining site plans are going to have further stipulations. They can't go vertical until construction is done on this entire project. Same with the last provision. Newland can process other plats, they just can't record them. So, because it takes a while to get through that whole process, and we certainly don't want to hold them up. We just want to make sure that the water is there by the time the plats are recorded. City will have a few responsibilities. One is we have to do some repairs to existing pumps at Site 13. I'll show you that exhibit in just a second. And then we also have to replace one of the pumps as well. So these are things that we will absorb within our operations budget, working with finance. Absolutely, it's just part of within the budget. Okay, if you look at the black squares, the one on the top is Site 13. That's where our 1.5 million gallon tank is. And then you'll see that if you come all the way down to the bottom and head back towards the west, that's the Rainbow Valley. So there will be work in there as well as far as constructing that separate fill line. But this just shows you strategically where these tanks are so we can provide service to the community. Okay, the payments by Newland as part of the development agreement, you'll see in here that once the contract, if is it approved by council tonight, we will within 30 days have half the cost for well one. It was the city's cost, so they'll be paying 50% of that entire cost. We receive the balance of that 12 months after the contract is completed. Then they have 30 months with which to do well two. And you'll see the amount up there as well. So total payments, and this is just for paying for the wells that were developed at Adaman, they will be paying $6.3 million in round numbers, plus the design, plus the engineering, plus the construction of the pipelines. So the next steps, Newland will be getting into engineering design at this point. The concept designs, or what we call the hydraulic studies, are done. It was a great platform from which to now get into engineering because both parties know what is expected. Finally, they'll be constructing the infrastructure, and then we'll be doing some repairs up at Site 13 on some of the pumps. And that's I'll call it the technical part of the presentation. The resolution and the agreement, Sarah Chilton can be covering those. And she has been hammered by bronchitis and has been just a warrior getting through that, so appreciate her being here tonight. So let her talk, and then if you have questions, I'll be here as well.
Appreciate it.
Mayor, Lord, Council.
Do you need it down lower? There you go.
I'd like to hand this out to you.
All right.
It's a revised resolution.
Thank you. Sarah, you're going to designate where the revised part is on
And
this.
it's
Okay.
highlighted. It's
Oh, it's on the back. I see it. Section 2. Yeah, okay. In the red is where, okay.
Unfortunately, last week, I got bronchitis, and rather than allow it to go into pneumonia like poor Marty in our office, I thought I would stay home and try and recover. But it didn't, I didn't have a chance to see the final agreement. Matt Yingling and I were working on it Tuesday. We reached a final agreement on, just tinkering with the terms. Matt put everything together. He incorporated all the changes we had discussed. But when I came back, I realized that the exhibits had not been attached to the agreement that was presented to council in the agenda packet, and there were some typographical and mostly typos. There was one section where we referred to an exhibit for a reconcilement for development impact fees that we're going to attach. There's a place in the agreement that had the date of the reconcilement, but we never got that, so I need to include that. And there was about 5 or 4 other typographical, like double paragraph or double commas, things like that. So what I did was today I prepared a revised resolution, and it revises section 2, authorizing the city attorney to make non-substantive changes. So nothing will change. It will just fix the typos, and I can go through the ones that I've identified where we would be making changes. And so it would allow us to make the non-substantive changes, to add the exhibits that are referenced in the agreement, and then authorize the city manager to execute the final agreement. And the section 2 would read, the city attorney is authorized to make non-substantive changes to the agreement and to incorporate the exhibits referenced in the agreement, and the city manager is authorized to execute the final agreement on behalf of the city of Goodyear. So it's a minor change, but it just allows us to kind of finalize it because we got derailed by whatever's going around the city. That was my only change. Where I'm working on pulling all to the exhibits together. I know Newland's anxious to get this signed, and we'll get that done this week if the council approves it. We've worked really hard on getting everything together. But these are complex agreements, and there's a lot of issues on both sides that you really have to weigh and consider. And we've been to E-session at least maybe twice on this agreement. So the COEC outlined the agreement, or the substantive terms of the agreements, pretty detailed. But if you have questions, I'm happy to answer any of those. Otherwise, I would just ask that you approve the amended resolution.
I appreciate that. Are there any speaker cards on this? All right. Thank you. Then I'd like to ask the city clerk to read the resolution, please. 12-1479 by title only.
Adopt Resolution 12-1479 as amended, approving and authorizing the city manager to execute Northern Solution Water Facilities Agreement relating to the development of water resources and infrastructure to provide water service to Estrella, authorizing the city manager to execute the agreement, authorizing city manager to take all actions and execute all documents necessary to carry out intent of resolution and terms of the agreement, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you so much. Could I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved. Second.
I heard a motion by Councilman Stiff and second by Councilman Gelzer. Open for council discussion. Councilman Stiff?
I just have to ask the bankruptcy question. What protection do we have if Newland ceases to exist as Newland?
Well,
And we're in this thing, construction has started.
we won't allow the construction to start until we get a payment bond or a surety bond. So once we have the design done and they've entered into a construction contract, we'll allow them to work within the right-of-ways and undertake the improvements on behalf of the city, we would require a surety bond. That's part of our standard practice. And that's part of the stipulations as well, because in every case, it's a big project. It's going to take them a long time. There's a lot of work on the ground, but there's some interest out there. They have Newland has some opportunities, and so they're going to be kind of moving on this parallel path. So we have stipulations in the plats, except for the 5.3 and the 5.5, well, that they can't be recorded. And then we have the ability to terminate the plats if the work isn't done within 2 years. With respect to the 5.3 and 5.5, there will be a stipulation that doesn't allow for vertical building construction to begin until till we're fully paid and until improvements are fully completed or they're under contract and we have a surety ensuring that their performance. I just don't see with those protections in place that we have that risk.
Great, thank you.
Councilman Campbell?
How long the construction is going to take?
Oh,
Are
Pete
we-
Tyke is here. He might need to come up here and talk about
My,
that.
well, I think we'll have him. Would you mind coming up and talk about?
There's a limit to my knowledge on this kind of stuff.
Thank you.
Good evening,
Hello.
Mayor and council members. Construction, we're estimating about 12
Can you
months.
come closer to the mic? I can't hear you.
For the construction, we're estimating about 12 months.
12 months. Okay, is it all in the right-of-way areas? You don't have to get permission from homeowners or anything. You're going to be able to access the complete line that you're going to be laying with, so there should not be any delays.
Right, it's not all in the right-of-way currently. Part of it will be in easements,
Okay,
but we won't need any permission from homeowners.
okay, good, thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much. And I didn't give Newland an opportunity to speak if they wanted to speak. So if Newland would like to, Mr. Bialy, would you like to come up and say a few words? I mean, this has taken a long time, so this is a momentous occasion here, and I'm very pleased to see you back there in the audience, and I was very pleased to see this on the agenda. So,
thank you, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Greg Bielli. I'm the regional president with Newland and oversee Estrella in the western U.S. for Newland. Mayor, thank you for the opportunity. This has been a long process, and as Brian has outlined and Sarah have outlined, there's been a lot of discussions, a lot of players. There's players that have gone on over the years on this discussion. We have in place 3 agreements that deal with our southern solution between us and the city. But as the discussions started on the southern solution, the city approached us early on that said they like to look at the northern solution and having us contribute to that. And as we went through all those discussions and conversations back and forth, both Newland and the city found that to be the most beneficial solution, bringing redundancy into the community, bringing the other source into the community, already having the well in place through the city's efforts, so reimbursing the city on those efforts. This has been a long process that we're very pleased to hopefully see you approve tonight and move forward. I would like to thank all the staff from the manager's office, the city attorney's office, Sarah, and everybody for all their efforts. This has been a major accomplishment, and we look forward to working long-term on the effort, moving forward. So thank you, Mayor.
thank you very much. All right. With that, let's take a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Pizzillo,
Aye.
Councilmember Loretano,
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell,
Aye.
Councilmember Gelzer,
Aye.
Councilmember Stipp,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Osborne,
Aye.
Mayor Lord,
Aye.
passes 7-0.
Very good. We do have one more session here, and I'd like a motion, a second, to go into executive session for discussion with the city attorney regarding his performance evaluation. So do I hear a motion?
Second.
A motion made by Councilwoman Campbell and a second by Vice Mayor Osborne. Roll call.
Councilmember Loretano,
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell,
Aye.
Councilmember Gelzer,
Aye.
Councilmember Stipp,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Osborne,
Aye.
Councilmember Pizzillo,
Aye.
Mayor Lord,
Aye.
passes 7-0.
All right, so we'll convene into executive meeting.
I don't know. I haven't figured that out.
Yeah, can you